Hey everyone. Welcome back to the channel. It's your host, Six Path Weeb, bringing you another deep dive into the world of shinobi dreams and reimagined legends. Today's fanfic spotlight is the Rebirth of Naruko Yamanaka, Part 2, a story where destiny takes a twist, bonds are rewritten, and power is rediscovered in the most unexpected way. Quick disclaimer, this channel is all about fandom love and creative exploration. I don't own any of the anime footage shown, all rights belong to their rightful creators and copyright holders. This is just for entertainment and discussion. Alright, let's dive in, time to see what fate has in store for Naruko. Beep. 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 The loud chime of the alarm clock echoed through the quiet room, successfully completing its job by waking up the figure nestled beneath soft purple silk sheets. Reluctant to abandon the warmth of her cozy cocoon, a hand slipped out from beneath the covers, feeling around the small nightstand until it located the noisy device. With a gentle, yet purposeful tap, the alarm was silenced. Though the room had returned to its calm stillness, the moment had already passed, rest would not return. Slowly, the girl pushed back the covers and sat up. Yamanaka stretched her arms high above her head, her lavender camisole shifting slightly to reveal her smooth midsection as she welcomed the new day. It was early. The sky remained mostly dark, with only the faintest glow from the horizon hinting at the coming sunrise. The peaceful ambience tempted her to return to bed and sneak in a few more moments of rest. But Ino knew better, her routine mattered, and looking her best took commitment. Suppressing a final yawn, she slid out of bed and headed to her vanity table. Instead of opening the curtains to the still dim morning light, she switched on the room's soft overhead lights. Blinking a few times as her eyes adjusted, she took a brief glance in the mirror before picking up her brush and gently working through her long hair, making sure each strand was smooth and neat. With her hair free of tangles, Ino continued her routine by heading into her bathroom. After selecting her outfit from the walk-in closet, she took a relaxing shower to freshen up. About 30 minutes later, Ino stepped out of the bathroom, now fully dressed in her favorite outfit, a sleeveless purple top with a high collar, a matching skirt with stylish side slits, and her signature elbow warmers in white and purple. Wrapped around her waist like a belt was her newly awarded Hitai 8, a symbol of her growth as a ninja. With only one step left in her morning routine, Ino returned to her vanity and began styling her still damp blonde hair. She experimented with different looks, pigtails, a braid, even a few fun curls, before settling on her usual high ponytail, with bangs elegantly framing the right side of her face. She gave herself a confident smile in the mirror, then turned and headed out of her room. As she descended the stairs, a delightful aroma guided her toward the kitchen. To her surprise, only her mother was there preparing breakfast. "Morning, Mom," Ino greeted cheerfully. "Good morning, Ino-chan. Did you sleep well?" Mayu Yamanaka replied, pausing from slicing vegetables to smile at her daughter. Ino took a seat at the table and nodded. "I did, thanks. Hey, where are Dad and Naruko-chan?" Her mother stirred a simmering pot on the stove and answered casually. "Your father left early. He mentioned something about needing to help at the intelligence division." Ino nodded again, understanding well how busy her father's duties could be. "As for Naru-chan, I think she's still tucked in and fast asleep," Mayu added with a light-hearted laugh. Ino's eyes widened in surprise, and she stood up abruptly. "Seriously? She chose today to oversleep?" Now, her mother said gently. "Your father probably trained her quite a bit yesterday. Let her rest, within reason." "Want me to wake her up?" Ino asked. "Yes, please. Otherwise, you both might run late." Nodding, Ino left the kitchen and returned upstairs. Passing her own room and her parents' door, she reached Naruko's. She knocked a few times, but when there was no response, she tilted her head with a small sigh. If Naruko was truly still asleep, knocking alone wouldn't be enough. Shrugging lightly, Ino opened the door and stepped inside. As disorganized as ever, thought Ino, stepping carefully through the cluttered room. She weaved around strewn clothing, scrolls, and other scattered belongings as she made her way toward the bed. Once she was close enough to the sleeping blonde, she called out cheerfully, "Rise and shine, Naruko-chan. It's already morning." However, Naruko remained fast asleep, lightly snoring with her mouth slightly open and a tiny bit of drool at the corner of her lips. Ino sighed. Her gentle wake-up call clearly hadn't worked. She considered trying a louder approach, but then an idea sparked in her mind. Quietly stepping toward the window, she drew the orange curtains open with a swift tug, allowing the bright morning sun to flood the room. Ino smiled as the sunlight reached Naruko's face, expecting her to finally stir. But instead, Naruko simply mumbled softly in her sleep and rolled over, turning away from the brightness. Growing a bit impatient, Ino moved to Naruko's other side, grasped her gently by the shoulders, and gave her a firm shake. "Come on, Naruko-chan, if you don't wake up, we're going to be late." This finally seemed to have some effect. Naruko began to move. But before Ino could react further, Naruko instinctively reached out and pulled her into a sleepy embrace. With a surprised squeak, Ino lost her balance and tumbled onto the bed, landing on top of the still drowsy Kunoichi. Time seemed to stand still for Ino. One moment she had been trying to rouse her friend, and now she was resting against her, Naruko's arms loosely wrapped around her waist. Ino's face warmed as she realized how close they were. Naruko's relaxed breathing gently brushed against her ear, and her expression remained peaceful, completely unaware of their unexpected closeness. Ino began to push herself up but paused when her hands pressed against Naruko's bare shoulders, only now noticing that Naruko had fallen asleep without a shirt. She attempted to sit up again, but Naruko's arms only held on more securely, as if hugging a cherished pillow. With emotion, Ino found herself being pulled a bit closer. Her cheek brushed Naruko's shoulder, and she caught the faint scent of sweat and warm linen, a simple, familiar scent that oddly made her feel calm. Maybe just a few more minutes won't hurt, she thought, relaxing slightly and resting her head gently on Naruko's shoulder. Her lips curved into a soft smile as she listened to Naruko's steady breathing. "Looks like training wore you out again." The comfortable stillness triggered a memory in Ino's mind. Flashback. 3 blondes stood in a wide, tree-lined training field. 2 were focused near the center, while the third, young Ino, sat comfortably atop a large rock, observing. "All right, Naruko, we're almost finished," said the tall blonde with a firm but kind tone. It was Inoiki Yamanaka, arms crossed as he looked toward his energetic student. Naruko was bent over slightly, catching her breath after an intense round of drills. "To wrap things up, I want you to do continuous push-ups until I return with groceries for dinner," he instructed. Then he turned to his daughter. "Ino-chan, could you come here for a moment?" Ino hopped off the rock and jogged over, excited to help. "You're in charge while I'm gone. Make sure Naruko doesn't slack off. And if I hear she stopped, that'll mean an extra 20 laps around the training field." Naruko nodded obediently, if a bit nervously. "Great. Ino-hime, I'm counting on you," Inoiki said, leaning in to kiss the top of his daughter's head before heading off. Left alone, the 2 girls stared at one another until Ino broke the silence. "What are you waiting for, Naruko-chan?" Naruko hesitated briefly at the playful glint in Ino's eyes but lowered herself to begin her push-ups. Ino watched carefully for a while but quickly grew bored. Around the 30th push-up, Naruko suddenly felt added pressure on her back. "Ino-chan. What are you doing?" she asked, her arms trembling slightly. Sitting cross-legged on Naruko's back, Ino replied casually, "The ground's dusty. I didn't want to get my outfit dirty." "Couldn't you sit somewhere else?" Naruko asked with mild strain. "Is this too much for you?" Ino teased. "My dad would be surprised if his star student couldn't handle little ol' me." Naruko refused to back down. Gritting her teeth, she lowered herself almost to the ground, then pushed back up. "Watch and learn. The future Hokage never quits, Databayo." For the next 10 minutes, she powered through the exercise, and Ino couldn't help but feel impressed. No matter how tough things got, Naruko gave it her all. She never complains, no matter how hard the training gets, Ino thought, her admiration growing. Then Naruko exhaled sharply. "You know, Ino. You're kind of heavy." Ino's eyebrow twitched. "That's not something you say to a girl," she thought with a mischievous smile. She waited until Naruko dipped close to the ground again before launching her tickle attack. "Hey, no fair," Naruko giggled, trying not to collapse. Ino only giggled back and intensified her playful assault. Eventually, Naruko's arms gave out, and she fell gently onto the soft earth, both girls laughing. Not one to back down, Naruko turned and rolled them so she could tickle Ino in return. "Hey, stop it!" Ino squealed, trying to block Naruko's hands. "You didn't think I'd go easy just because you're a girl, did you?" Naruko laughed. Their playful wrestling continued until Ino found Naruko's whisker marks and used them to her advantage, making her friend squeal with laughter. From a short distance away, a man holding grocery bags paused to watch. Inoiki smiled softly at the sight. For someone who once spent so much time alone, Naruko now looked happier than ever, laughing and playing like any child should. "Okay, girls, that's enough. Time to head home." The 2 blondes stopped, still catching their breath, Ino lying atop Naruko in a heap of laughter. I said time to go. Inoiki called again, amused but firm. The Yamanaka heiress didn't pay much attention to the passing of time. For her, the present moment was all that mattered as she rested peacefully, enjoying the comforting warmth around her just like she used to, years ago. My, Ino-chan, you're being quite affectionate, came a familiar voice that made Ino freeze. She turned her head so quickly it was a wonder she didn't get dizzy, and just as she feared, standing at the doorway was her mother. I came upstairs to check on you. I thought I asked you to wake her up, not take a nap with her, Mayu said with a soft chuckle, leaning against the doorframe. This isn't what it looks like, Ino stammered, flustered as she quickly tried to sit up. In her awkward scrambling, she didn't notice where her hand landed until she felt something solid beneath it. Momentarily puzzled, she instinctively gave it a small squeeze, until a quiet sound from the still sleeping Naruko brought immediate clarity. Ino's face turned bright red when she realized what she had touched. Trying to suppress her embarrassment, she quickly moved away. Anticipating the upcoming chaos, Mayu gently covered her ears and headed back downstairs. She was halfway to the kitchen when she heard her daughter shout. "You silly girl, wake up already." Ino-chan, wait up. Naruko called out, jogging after her friend who was walking several steps ahead. The blonde girl kept walking without responding. Naruko sighed. The distance between them said it all, Ino was upset. Normally, they walked side by side through the village, but every time Ino was ahead, it meant Naruko had somehow annoyed her. It's not even my fault. Come on. Naruko thought, sighing again. She'd woken from a peaceful dream only to be yelled at and pushed away by a very frustrated, and beautiful, friend. After piecing things together, she understood why Ino had been startled. I didn't do anything on purpose. And I definitely didn't ask her to rest her hand there. Naruko wore a simple purple t-shirt and black cargo shorts that stopped at her shins, along with her shinobi sandals and her Konoha forehead protector. Her thoughts were interrupted by a gentle pat on the back. Turning her head, Naruko spotted two familiar faces. "Good morning, Naruko," greeted Choji cheerfully through a mouthful of chips. "Morning, Choji." Naruko smiled back. Choji Akimichi, a kind-hearted friend, wore his usual outfit and had his signature swirl markings on his cheeks. "Morning," said a yawning Shikamaru as he caught up with them. "Hey Shikamaru." Naruko grinned, glad to see him. Shikamaru Nara, with his ever-present lazy expression, wore his standard attire and walked alongside them with a calm demeanor. "Hey Naruko, what's up with Ino?" Shikamaru asked, nodding toward the clearly irritated girl ahead of them. Choji opened a new snack bag and chimed in, "She seems pretty upset." "What did you do?" Naruko's eye twitched slightly. "Why does everyone assume it's my fault when Ino's upset?" Shikamaru sighed. "Naruko, trust me, sometimes it's just better to say sorry and move on. But you don't even know what happened." "Alright, fine. What happened?" Naruko slowed down and leaned toward them. "Okay, but keep it quiet. So this morning." She paused. Choji and Shikamaru waited. And waited. Naruko had broken into a nervous sweat. "There's no way. Can she actually hear us? Is this that thing they call girls' intuition?" Following Naruko's gaze, the two boys turned to see Ino glancing back with a sharp look that made Naruko tense up. Naruko gulped. "You know what? Let's just not talk about it." Her friends nodded quickly. In a classroom buzzing with excitement, young Jinan eagerly awaited the announcement that would decide the teams they'd be working with in the coming years. Boys and girls chatted among themselves, trying to calm their nerves as anticipation built with each passing moment. Some enthusiastic shinobi added to the lively atmosphere by cheerfully declaring their goals and dreams. "Yahoo! Nothing can stop us, Akamaru!" cheered a boy with enthusiasm, his small white dog barking in agreement from the comfort of his gray furred jacket. "Kiba, must you be so loud this early in the morning?" mumbled Shikamaru, lifting his head from his folded arms on the desk. The boisterous boy smirked, revealing prominent canines, one of many distinguishing features of the Inuzuka clan, along with his slitted pupils and fang-like red markings on his cheeks. "Come on, don't be such a drag. We're about to meet our teams, get excited, sleepyhead," Kiba said playfully to the dark-haired girl beside him. Shikamaru simply lowered his head again and closed his eyes, choosing silence over argument. With Shikamaru uninterested, Kiba turned to the other two at the desk, Naruko and Choji. After chatting about nothing in particular for a while, Kiba gave Naruko a teasing glance. "Hey Naruko, How come you're sitting here instead of with your best friend? He joked with a grin. She's not my best friend, Naruko replied with a slight frown, the whisker-like marks on her cheeks twitching as she spoke. Kiba smirked wider. Relax, I'm just saying it's nice to see you out and about. Oh, are we talking about leashes now, dog boy? Maybe I should get you a flea collar, you wouldn't want Akamaru catching anything now, would you? Naruko said with a sly grin. Why, you? Kiba started, only to be cut off by laughter from Choji, who had been quietly observing their exchange. Sorry, said Choji between chuckles, but it's always like this with you too. Kiba and Naruko both rolled their eyes, calming down. Kiba then glanced across the room, noticing a stern expression on the face of a certain blonde-haired girl. Did you do something to annoy her again? He asked casually. Naruko furrowed her brow. Why does everyone assume it's always my fault? This time, Shikamaru chimed in. Because it usually is. You can be a little oblivious. Before Naruko could respond, a loud voice silenced the entire room. That's enough. The ringing in their ears faded as the students turned to see their academy teacher, Iruka Umino, standing at the front of the classroom in his official Chunin attire. Good morning, everyone. Starting today, you are official ninja. But remember, you're still rookies. The real journey begins now, he said seriously. A hand shot up from a girl with bright pink hair and a red dress. Excuse me, sensei. Yes, Sakura? Where's Mizuki-sensei today? Iruka's expression turned serious. Mizuki was removed from his position after it was discovered he had acted against the village's trust. Gasps echoed throughout the room. I understand this is shocking, but I'm not permitted to share any more details. Just know that you're safe. The students quieted. Sensing the somber mood, Iruka smiled warmly. Don't worry. With proper guidance and training, you'll all be well prepared for what lies ahead. The reassurance from their teacher lifted the spirits in the room. Now, onto your team assignments. Each of you will be placed into a 3-person squad under the supervision of a Jonin instructor. You'll follow their guidance as you grow and take on missions. Iruka pulled out a chart and began reading names. Eventually, he reached a familiar trio. Team 7, Haruno Sakura, Naruko Uzumaki. Sakura sighed loudly and rested her forehead on the desk while Naruko, sitting beside her, narrowed her eyes at the reaction. And Uchiha Sasuke. Your Jonin will be Hatake Kakashi. Sakura instantly perked up and cheered, while Naruko frowned. Ino watched Naruko from across the room, sympathy in her eyes, until the girl beside her suddenly chimed in. Take that, Ino pig. Sasuke is all mine. Ino crossed her arms, clearly annoyed. Forehead, for the last time, I'm not interested in Sasuke. Sure you're not. Then why do you wear the same arm warmers as him? He copied me. Keep telling yourself that. Ino sighed, thinking, why did I sit here again? Iruka continued. Team 8, Inuzuka Kiba, Hyuga Hinata, and Aburame Shino. Your sensei will be Yuhi Kurenai. Kiba glanced toward the quiet girl with dark blue hair and then to the calm boy in the high-collared green jacket and sunglasses. Team 9 remains active. Team 10, Yamanaka Ino, Nara Shikamaru, and Akimichi Choji. Your sensei will be Sarutobi Asuma. The 3 teammates nodded at one another. Your instructors will be arriving soon. Please wait patiently, Iruka said before stepping away. Soon, the Jonin began arriving, collecting their assigned teams. The classroom grew quieter as more groups left. Team 10, with me, said a tall man with a beard, dressed in the standard Jonin uniform. He placed an unlit cigarette in his mouth. Ino lingered a moment to glance at Naruko, who was sitting alone now. Naruko smiled brightly and gave her a thumbs up. Ino smiled back before hurrying to join her team. Now only Team 7 and Iruka remained. After a few minutes, Iruka left, saying he had papers to grade. Left alone, Sakura began trying to start a conversation with Sasuke, only to be met with cold indifference. Eventually, she sat at another desk in frustration. Naruko sighed, wanting to at least get along with her new teammates. She stood up and walked over to Sasuke. Sasuke, we'll be working together from now on. Let's do our best, okay? She said, extending her hand. Sasuke didn't look up. Just stay out of my way. Naruko lowered her hand. Wow. Real team spirit, huh? They exchanged a tense glance. Leave Sasuke alone, Naruko baka, Sakura shouted, running over and swinging a punch. Naruko dodged effortlessly, and Sakura stumbled forward, landing on the floor. Sakura, you never learn, Naruko said calmly. Then she looked back at Sasuke. And you? Try acting like a teammate for once. She walked away and sat at a different desk. The room fell into a long, uncomfortable silence. Naruko briefly considered playing a harmless prank on their tardy instructor but decided against it. That wouldn't reflect well on Inoki-sensei. Finally, after what felt like forever, a tall man with spiky silver hair peeked through the doorway. Team 7, meet me on the rooftop, he said before disappearing from view. Let's begin with a little introduction, said a man as he sat casually on the rooftop guardrail. Naruko observed him closely. Spiky silver hair, a mask covering his nose and mouth, his forehead protector tilted over his left eye, the standard Konoha shinobi uniform, and an easygoing vibe that could rival Shikamaru's. Yep, this is definitely the famous copy ninja, Hatake Kakashi. What would you like to know? Asked Sakura, sitting beside Sasuke with her legs pulled close to her chest. The tall jonin gave a relaxed shrug. Let's start with your likes, dislikes, goals for the future, and hobbies, basic things like that. The pink-haired girl looked at him curiously. Sensei, could you show us how it's done first? It's pretty simple, but sure. He responded. Kakashi paused briefly to consider. My name is Kakashi Hatake. I'm not really interested in sharing my likes or dislikes. As for my goals. And I have quite a few hobbies. Sakura blinked. So? All we got was your name. Naruko smirked. That's not true. We also learned she has a lot of hobbies. Kakashi crossed her arms. Alright then, since you're so enthusiastic, why don't you go next, Blondie? Sure, I don't mind at all, Hatake-san. My name is Uzumaki Naruko. I like the Yamanaka clan, the Hokage, and my friends. I dislike arrogant people, those who abandon their comrades, and anyone who threatens the people I care about. My dream is to become strong enough to protect the ones I love. As for hobbies, I enjoy training and reading. Kakashi gave a nod of approval. Impressive. Inoki did a great job raising her. Next, she said. Sasuke, still sitting in her usual reserved posture, hands interlaced in front of her face, introduced herself calmly. My name is Uchiha Sasuke. I dislike many things, and there's not much I particularly like. I wouldn't call it a dream, but I do have a goal, to restore my clan and face someone from my past. The group sat in thoughtful silence after her words. So cool. Thought the love-struck Kunoichi. Naruko, meanwhile, mulled over her own thoughts. She's still focused on her mission. I hope one day she finds peace. Just as I thought, Kakashi mused silently. Alright. And finally, you. The pink-haired girl responded bashfully, I'm Haruno Sakura. The person I like is. She glanced at Sasuke, cheeks turning pink. And my dream for the future is. She looked again at Sasuke, let out a squeal, and fell silent. And your dislikes? Kakashi prompted. Without hesitation, Sakura answered, Ino pig and Naruko baka. Kakashi blinked. Is she serious? Meanwhile, Naruko turned toward her. Watch it, Sakura. I don't mind if you make fun of me, but I won't let anyone talk badly about the Yamanaka clan, especially Ino-chan. What did you say, baka? Before the tension could grow, Kakashi raised a hand. That's enough, both of you. Tomorrow we start our team activities. Sakura tilted her head. What kind of activities, sensei? We'll start with a special exercise just for the four of us, survival training. Sakura looked confused. Why survival training? We already did plenty of that at the academy. Naruko interjected confidently, it's not just training, it's a test. Only those who pass will officially become Jonin, right? Kakashi nodded. That's right. Out of 27 graduates, only 9 will be selected. The rest will return to the academy. The success rate is less than 34%. Naruko closed her eyes in thought, Sakura frowned, and Sasuke appeared focused. You'll be evaluated at the training ground. Bring all your tools, and don't eat breakfast. You might feel uncomfortable if you do. That was delicious as always, Mayu-san, said Naruko, carefully drying a glass plate. The woman beside her rinsed another dish and passed it over. Thank you, Naru-chan, but you don't need to help with the dishes. Naruko smiled. It's the least I can do. You made an amazing dinner again. Mayu chuckled. You earned it. Both you and Ino-chan made the top 5 in the academy, 2nd and 4th. That's something to be proud of. I guess. I just wish I had worked harder to surpass Sasuke, Naruko said, slightly pouting. The older woman flicked a few drops of water at her playfully. No sulking in this house. We're proud of you, Naru-chan. After drying her hands, she gestured for Naruko to follow her. Come on, let's see what Ino-chan and my husband are doing. Naruko followed her into the dining room, where Ino and her father sat at the mahogany table. Mayu took a seat beside Inoiki, across from Ino, while Naruko sat next to her friend, facing their sensei. Ino was just telling me about her team and their teacher, Inoiki said calmly. Now it's your turn, tell me about yours. Naruko straightened up. Yes, sensei. Team 7 includes Haruno Sakura, Uchiha Sasuke, and me. Our Jonin leader is Hatake Kakashi. During our meeting, we introduced ourselves, and Hatake-san told us about a test we have to pass to be confirmed as Jonin. Here are the details. She pulled a folded paper from her pocket and handed it over. Inoiki read the paper. The 3rd training ground, 5 a.m. sharp. He set it down and looked at Naruko. I'll be honest with you, I'm not thrilled about Kakashi being your leader. Naruko tilted her head. Why not? I thought she was one of the most talented shinobi in Konoha. She is. But her teaching methods are unique. You're not her first team, she's tested others before, and none passed. Ino looked at her mother for confirmation. Mayu gave a solemn nod. So what? Naruko replied, unfazed. Inoiki raised his eyebrows. I don't care if the test is tough, I'm ready. After all, I was trained by the best sensei in the village, Naruko said proudly. Dadabayo. Her confident words brought smiles to everyone at the table. So, Inoiki-sensei, any tips for tomorrow? I can't say much. Kakashi keeps her plans close to the vest. But here's something to think about, always look underneath the underneath. The night deepened as the moon and stars reached their highest point in the sky. Most of the homes in Konoha had already turned off their lights, with families resting peacefully to prepare for a new day. However, for a young blonde girl, sleep remained elusive. Eventually, Naruko grew tired of staring at her ceiling and decided to get out of bed. She moved quietly, padding down the stairs and into the kitchen. She didn't bother turning on the lights, her eyes were already used to the darkness, and the soft moonlight filtering through the window above the sink provided enough illumination. She opened the refrigerator and gently searched through its contents until she found what she was looking for. With a small, satisfied smile, Naruko opened the lid of the milk carton and began to drink straight from it. Use a glass. You're not the only one in the house who drinks milk, you know, came a light scolding voice from behind. Naruko turned around with a sheepish smile. Hey Ino-chan, couldn't sleep either? If I could, I definitely wouldn't be standing here, Ino replied with a playful tone as she grabbed a glass from the cupboard and hopped up to sit on the counter. Pass me the milk, will you? Naruko walked over and leaned casually against the counter, pouring some milk into Ino's glass. Thanks, Ino murmured as she took a sip. Naruko took the moment to glance at her friend. Ino was wearing her favorite purple pajamas adorned with white polka dots. Her long blonde hair flowed freely down her back, with a few soft strands framing her face. Naruko smiled warmly, quickly turning her focus back to the conversation. Ino finished her sip and wiped her lips gently. Are you nervous about tomorrow's test? She asked softly. Naruko ran a hand through her hair. Maybe a little. But also really excited. Excited? Ino tilted her head with mild curiosity. Yeah. Once we pass, we'll finally become full-fledged Jonin. That's something to look forward to, right? Naruko said with a cheerful grin. Ino leaned back slightly on her hands, her feet gently swinging and occasionally brushing against Naruko's pants as they sat in comfortable silence. You sound pretty sure of yourself. What if we don't pass? Ino asked, her tone teasing. We'll pass, Naruko replied confidently. We've trained so much. There's no reason to doubt ourselves now. The two friends sat quietly for a moment, listening to the gentle hum of crickets outside and enjoying the calmness of the night. I'm sorry about earlier today. For ignoring you, Ino said, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know what got into me. Naruko placed a reassuring hand on her friend's shoulder. It's okay. Maybe I should have woken up earlier too. Ino gave a mock sigh. You're right, it was your fault, she said, smirking. Naruko blinked in surprise, but Ino giggled. But I forgive you, just this once. Don't let it happen again, alright? Yes, Yes. I understand, Inohime, Naruko replied playfully. Ino hopped off the counter with a graceful stretch. Good. Now, kind escort, walk me back to my room. Naruko chuckled softly. As you wish, princess. Ino blushed slightly, though it went unnoticed in the dim light. Together, the two walked down the hallway. After a quiet exchange of good night, Naruko returned to her own room. Soon, both girls settled into their beds, falling asleep peacefully. In the end, it hadn't been nerves keeping them awake, but the quiet sadness of having spent the day without each other's company. The next morning, Naruko made her way to Training Ground 3, the location Kakashi had instructed them to meet for their final trial before they could officially call themselves Genin of the Leaf. The sun had not yet fully risen, but the first light of dawn was beginning to emerge. Naruko took a deep breath, enjoying the coolness of the early morning, a limbo between night and day. Years of intense training with Inoiki had taught her to wake up early, as her sensei often reminded her that the early bird catches the worm. Wanting to make a good impression on Kakashi, Naruko woke up 20 minutes earlier than necessary to prepare for the trial. Dressed in her usual purple t-shirt, cargo shorts, and sandals, Naruko added a ninja pouch filled with the tools she had prepared for the test. Following Kakashi's instructions, she skipped breakfast and left the house as quietly as possible, not forgetting the bento box that Mayu had packed for her the night before. As she approached the clearing of the training ground, Naruko saw two silhouettes coming from the east and the west. As they drew closer, the figures revealed themselves to be her teammates. Sasuke seemed to have no trouble waking up early. True to his calm and composed nature, he approached the clearing with an air of indifference. However, Naruko could see the determination burning in his onyx eyes. Sakura, on the other hand, was the complete opposite. Her long, vibrant pink hair was in disarray, with strands sticking out of her usual style. She appeared as if she might trip any second, her posture hunched, her eyes fluttering between open and closed. When their paths crossed and the three members of Team 7 stood face to face, they exchanged silent greetings, each nodding their heads in acknowledgement before waiting for their teacher's arrival. And so, they waited. Even as the last traces of night faded from Konoha, their hope remained unshaken. Birds flew out of their nests, singing their familiar songs as they went in search of food. Team 7 continued to wait, expecting Kakashi to appear at any moment. They scanned every direction, just like children eagerly waiting for their parent to pick them up from school. They waited with faith, knowing that their teacher would show up sooner or later. They waited, and waited, and waited. Time passed slowly, and the three teens tried to reassure themselves with thoughts like, he must be coming soon, and it's been an hour now, even Kakashi wouldn't make us wait much longer. This is an official test, after all. Little did they know, they were greatly underestimating their sensei, Kakashi Hatake. You're late. The loud exclamation startled Naruko, causing her to accidentally bump the back of her head against the tree she had been resting against. Rubbing the sore spot on her head, she turned toward the source of the noise. It was Sakura, clearly furious. Sasuke looked irritated as well, while Kakashi appeared somewhat sheepish. Sorry about that. A black cat crossed my path, so I had to take the long way around, Kakashi explained with an amused tone. Sakura opened her mouth to say something, but Kakashi seized the opportunity to shift the conversation when he noticed Naruko walking toward them. Yo, Naruko. You're finally up? Kakashi said casually. Naruko, still feeling a bit of irritation, controlled her rising frustration. She glanced at Kakashi and spoke, I arrived at the time you instructed us, but since you were 2 hours late, I decided to rest under the shade of a tree. I must have fallen asleep. Kakashi nodded thoughtfully. Alright, but be careful next time. A true ninja must always stay alert to their surroundings. Something about Kakashi lecturing her on ninja behavior made Naruko feel a bit like Sakura had moments earlier. But Naruko bit her tongue, suppressing her desire to react angrily. Let's get this show on the road, shall we? Kakashi said as he pulled an alarm clock from his pouch. Let's see. It's a little after 10 o'clock, so that means you have a little less than 2 hours to complete the test, since it ends at noon. Team 7 nodded in acknowledgement, but Naruko's brow furrowed in confusion. Did he say it's a little after 10 o'clock? She asked. Sakura and Sasuke both nodded. You slept for about 3 hours, Naruko, Sasuke said with a touch of amusement. Naruko wasn't amused. This guy. He's nothing like Inoiki-sensei, Dadabayo. She muttered under her breath. Her frustration with Kakashi boiled over. What kind of jonin are you? Naruko exclaimed, her voice full of irritation. Sasuke and Sakura exchanged surprised glances. They had never seen Naruko lose her cool like this before, but Kakashi's behavior seemed to have gotten under her skin. Kakashi remained unfazed. He met Naruko's gaze, his expression calm. "I'm a busy jonin. You're not Jonin yet, so I doubt you can fully understand the responsibilities that come with the job." Naruko's anger flared. Being busy isn't an excuse for being 5 hours late, T-by-O. "Calm down, Naruko," Sakura said quickly, trying to defuse the situation. But part of her secretly cheered for her teammate. "Go, Naruko. Put him in his place." Ignoring Sakura, Naruko continued to express her frustration. "If you can't be on time for something as important as an official test, how can we trust you to be a good teacher? A Jonin sensei's job is to teach, train, and protect their team until we're ready to handle it ourselves, but with you as our sensei, we might not even survive the first mission." Just as the words left Naruko's mouth, a gust of wind swept through the clearing, and in the blink of an eye, Kakashi appeared behind Naruko. His right hand ruffled her hair playfully as he spoke in a serious tone. "I promise you all, if we ever go on a mission, I'll protect you with everything I have." Kakashi's voice was firm and reassuring. He disappeared again, reappearing by the log where he had placed the clock. "But of course, that promise only stands if you pass my test," he added with a slight grin. Naruko fell silent, reflecting on Kakashi's words. Sakura was still in awe, trying to process the incredible speed displayed by the Jonin. "No way. I couldn't even keep up with her." Sasuke was equally surprised, though his excitement grew. He was eager at the thought of a strong ninja training him. So this is what a Jonin is like. When Kakashi noticed that the students were deep in thought, she cleared her throat to gain their attention and spoke. "Well, we've already lost some valuable time for the test, thanks to our grumpy teammate here." Kakashi sent a playful glance at the frowning Naruko and couldn't help but mentally laugh at the frustrated blonde. "This is going to be too easy. So, let me quickly explain the rules of the test so we can get started." Kakashi pulled out a pair of bells from her pocket and displayed them to the group. "These are 2 bells. Your task is to take them from me before noon. If you don't manage to get a bell, you won't have lunch. Also," Kakashi pointed to one of the 3 stumps in a row, "I will tie you to one of these stumps and make you watch me eat in front of you." As the words sank in, the empty stomachs of Sasuke, Sakura, and Naruko growled in unison, their hunger growing as they realized the implications of the do not eat breakfast rule. The bells jingled, and their eyes were drawn to them, their focus intense. "You only need to get 1 bell, but since there are 2 bells, one of you will definitely be tied to a stump." Kakashi's expression became more serious. "The person who doesn't get a bell will fail. That means at least one of you will be sent back to the academy." A tense silence followed, the weight of the situation hanging in the air, with a soft breeze drifting through the clearing, carrying the gravity of Kakashi's words. Kakashi's face returned to its usual calm demeanor after the brief moment of tension. "Don't hesitate to use tools or weapons. You won't succeed unless you approach this as if your lives depended on it. But you'll be in danger." Sakura protested, her voice filled with concern. Naruko let out a short chuckle. "She's a Jonin. We'll need every kunai and shuriken we have if we even want a chance." "So, you finally acknowledge me? I guess you 3 aren't so bad," Kakashi responded with a grin. "All right, let's begin. Ready?" The 3 soon-to-be Jonin tensed, preparing themselves for the test that would determine their future as shinobi. "Start." In the blink of an eye, the 3 disappeared into the trees, moving swiftly and silently. Kakashi turned her head in multiple directions, scanning the area. She wasn't actually looking for them, she was evaluating their hiding skills. Kakashi knew she didn't need to search, soon enough, the bells tied to her waist would lure them in. So, she waited patiently, much like a fisherman with her line cast into the water. Up in the branches, Naruko observed Kakashi from a distance. Her breathing was slow and measured, her movements as graceful and silent as a tiger stalking its prey, unaware of the danger lurking in the shadows. To Naruko's surprise and frustration, Kakashi, standing in the center of the clearing, pulled a book from her pouch and began flipping through the pages. It was clear to Naruko that Kakashi was mocking them. She was taunting them to attack while simultaneously making it clear she didn't see any of them as a real threat to her bells. Naruko took a deep breath to calm herself. Getting angry would only hinder her chances. She needed to think carefully, considering all her options before deciding what to do next. Charging head-on was out of the question, it would play right into Kakashi's hands. Waiting for one of her teammates to make a move was also a possibility, but Sasuke was likely thinking the same thing, and Naruko knew Sakura would be the least willing to act. Maybe a long-range attack. No, it won't work. There was too much distance between them, and the projectiles might miss. If Kakashi spotted them, she would likely be able to pinpoint their positions based on the trajectory of the thrown weapons. Naruko let out a frustrated sigh. Time was ticking away. If Sasuke and Sakura weren't going to make a move, she would have to be the one to take action first. Kakashi is clearly overconfident. If I can surprise her, I might have a chance. But how? An idea suddenly clicked in Naruko's mind. The shadow clone jutsu that Inoki-sensei taught me. I'm sure Kakashi won't expect a Jinan to use that technique. Naruko's eyes lit up as she formed a cross-shaped hand sign. Let's see if I can pull this off. Down in the clearing, Kakashi was still absorbed in her book, but she couldn't help wondering why the students hadn't attacked yet. I didn't expect them to be this hesitant. Should I go after them instead? As she considered her next move, Kakashi heard a soft thump nearby. Looking up from her book, she saw Naruko standing firmly with her hands positioned near the pockets of her shorts. Ah, so you finally decided to show up. I was starting to think you kids weren't going to try to take the bells from me, Kakashi remarked with a playful smile as she flipped another page of her book. Hey, what are you reading? Naruko asked, a grin forming on her face. This time, the Jonin didn't even glance at the Uzumaki, his visible eye still focused on the book in his hands. I'll tell you when you're older. What's wrong? Aren't you going to make a move? Aren't you going to put that book down? Naruko asked in return. Don't worry about it. It won't make a difference against you, Kakashi responded. Naruko took a deep breath. Now or never. She pulled out a pair of kunai from her pocket, holding them in a reverse grip, ready to stab rather than slash. She rushed toward the Jonin with a speed that surprised her teammates, but for Kakashi, Naruko might as well have been walking. Naruko swung the cold, black steel as she pulled her left arm across her face, gathering strength for the moment when she would strike. Though Kakashi seemed to be ignoring her, he was prepared for anything. Naruko telegraphed her attack too soon, something Kakashi attributed to her inexperience, and he easily avoided it. To his surprise, Naruko jumped back before closing the distance and hurled the kunai in her left hand at him from almost point-blank range. A feint. Kakashi thought, quickly moving to dodge the attack. Naruko's clone, prepared for this, followed suit and hurled a second kunai, which exploded into a cloud of white smoke when it met Kakashi's defenses. Naruko, already anticipating this, jumped to the ground just in time to avoid a flurry of shuriken that whirled through the air, heading straight for the spot where Kakashi had been. As the smoke began to fade, Naruko stood and watched with her clones, feeling a bit nervous as the cloud thinned. The idea of seeing the veteran ninja lying motionless with shuriken embedded in him was unsettling. He did say to attack with intent to win. Fortunately, the figure that emerged from the smoke wasn't Kakashi. The weapons had struck a log, not a person. You know, that was quite the clever attack you pulled off, Kakashi's voice rang out. A replacement. Naruko thought as she turned to see Kakashi, completely unscathed, leaning against a tree and reading his book again. When you threw the first kunai at me from such a short distance, I thought you were aiming to hit me. But, in reality, you were counting on me dodging and leaving myself open for the second kunai, which turned out to be a smoke bomb with a transformation jutsu on it. Kakashi pushed off from the tree and approached Naruko. If you were trying to surprise me, you certainly did. Who would think that someone fresh from the academy could use such an advanced technique as the shadow clone jutsu? Naruko laughed softly. I know a few who could do even more by the time they were my age. Isn't that right, Kakashi-sensei? She said, giving him a knowing look, like a child who knew a secret but wouldn't share it. Kakashi paused, raising an eyebrow. How much does this kid know? My past isn't exactly a secret, but it's still unusual for a Jinan to have access to this information. He shrugged. So, what now? Do you have another trick up your sleeve or are you giving up? Give up? I don't know the meaning of that word, Naruko declared, turning to her clones. You two, stay back and offer support. The rest of you, follow my lead, charge at my signal. The two support clones moved further from Kakashi, while Naruko and her offensive clone prepared to charge. Now, Naruko shouted. In perfect synchronization, both Naruko and her clone charged toward Kakashi. Kakashi, however, remained unfazed. He even took the time to turn the page of his book as Naruko and her clone advanced. The first strike came from the Naruko on the left, aiming a powerful punch at Kakashi's chin. But due to their height difference, Kakashi merely leaned back to avoid it. The clone struck almost immediately after, attempting a low roundhouse kick to trip Kakashi, but Kakashi simply jumped over it, still absorbed in his book. Before his feet even touched the ground, Kakashi had to block the punch from the original Naruko that followed the clone's kick. He adjusted his grip, caught the attacking clone's ankle, and tossed it toward the other clone. Naruko's body flew through the air and collided with her clone, dissipating into smoke. "Back up. I need backup," she called, rolling back to her feet. "Also, someone needs to step in at the front." The clones responded quickly, launching a mix of kunai and shuriken. Kakashi responded effortlessly, catching the kunai with a quick flick of his fingers and deflecting the rest. He didn't even take his eyes off his book. The clone alongside the original Naruko attempted another attack, but Kakashi sidestepped and dispelled the clone with a precise chop to the neck. Naruko's frustration grew. No matter what she tried, Kakashi seemed to be always one step ahead. She knew there was a vast gap between their skills, but it was still difficult to accept that her efforts hadn't even come close to succeeding. Overcome by frustration, Naruko rushed forward with a punch that was fueled by all her pent-up emotions. However, Kakashi's voice came from behind her. A ninja isn't supposed to be caught from behind. Up in the trees, the others, Sakura included, watched, eyes widening as Kakashi crouched behind Naruko, his fingers making a seal. Is he going to use a jutsu against her? Sakura thought, alarmed. Before she could warn Naruko, Kakashi made his move. Kanahagakure hidden taijutsu technique, 1,000 years of death, Kakashi declared dramatically, pushing his fingers toward Naruko's back. To Kakashi's surprise, Naruko was quick enough to swap places with one of her clones before the technique hit, leaving her standing several meters away from the jonin. That was so unnecessary. What kind of technique is that? Naruko yelled, her face flushed with embarrassment as she covered herself. Kakashi chuckled and rubbed the back of his head. Good reflexes, I thought I had you this time. Naruko wasn't amused. That's it, you're going down. She then leapt to a branch high above, preparing for another round. Kakashi observed her with mild interest as she glared down at him from the tree. His curiosity faded when he saw her forming a cross seal with her hands, ready to unleash a technique he knew all too well. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Naruko called out. Instantly, 32 clones of Naruko filled the clearing, all glaring at Kakashi. The original Naruko stood above them like a general commanding her troops. She knew that Kakashi was strong enough to take on a full army of ninja, so 32 clones might seem like nothing. But she wasn't ready to give up. Those who give up will never know if they could have won. Inoiki-sensei taught me that. Go, she commanded, and all the clones charged forward. The battle began, with Kakashi surrounded by the clones, evading their punches, kicks, and shuriken. The clones fought with determination, but Kakashi's skill and experience were clear as he swiftly dispelled them, one by one. Naruko watched from the trees, knowing her clones were holding their own. However, as the fight progressed, she noticed Kakashi growing more serious, and the wall of clones began to thin out quickly. The battle continued, but the outcome was far from certain. The clones were no longer attacking. Instead, they exchanged confused glances. Naruko could sense when each of her clones was dispelled, especially when she concentrated on the task at hand. That's why she grew concerned when she counted 12 clones, when there should only have been 11 remaining. This could only mean two things, either she miscounted, or Kakashi was disguised as one of her clones. As the confused clones started to lose their composure, Naruko decided to act quickly to prevent them from getting out of control. Everyone, please calm down and pay attention to me. Naruko called out. Once all the clones were focused on her, she continued, I want you to gather and form 4 lines with 3 Narukos in each line. The clones obeyed and gathered in the desired formation. So, you want to play, Kakashi? Fine, let's play. Naruko thought to herself. She cleared her throat before speaking again. My fellow Narukos, I'm afraid there's a possibility that one of us here isn't really one of us. The clones gasped in unison. But don't worry, I have the perfect way to reveal the fake. Naruko scanned the clones beneath her, looking for any signs of odd behavior, hoping Kakashi would make a mistake. If he's here, he's hiding really well. So, to find this fake, we will play a game of Naruko says. Naruko says, sit down. The clones quickly complied, sitting down on the ground. They are following her every move, Sasuke thought to himself, a little frustrated at the simplicity of the task. Why doesn't she just end the jutsu already? Naruko nodded in approval. Not bad. Now Naruko says, stand up. The clones immediately stood up. Good, they're playing along. Now to end this, Naruko thought. Naruko says. Jump. Kakashi, disguised as Naruko, jumped, but quickly realized he was the only one who did. The rest of the clones remained still. It's a trap, Kakashi realized, discovering Naruko's clever plan. He hoped no one had seen him jump, but unfortunately, they did. There she is. Get her, Naruko shouted, pointing at the clone who had jumped. Kakashi saw the clones move toward him in slow motion as they began to surround him. They attacked with all their might, but Kakashi could still appreciate how clever the plan was. I knew this game was meant to trick me, but I didn't expect it to be so well thought out, he reflected as he ducked under a kick. The first 2 rounds of the game made me feel safe, and the third round was a clever feint. Despite the effort from the clones, Kakashi quickly overpowered them, knocking them out one by one. Naruko was shocked when the last clone was dispelled, revealing that it was Kakashi in disguise. Kakashi chuckled as he brushed off his clothes. That was good, but not quite enough, Naruko-chan. He pulled out his book and opened it to the page where he had left off. Now, let's end this. I still need to find Sakura and Sasuke after all. Naruko cursed under her breath. She was exhausted and hungry. She needed to retreat to recover, but she knew Kakashi wouldn't let her go that easily. I need an opening, Naruko thought. As if responding to her thoughts, several shurikens suddenly shot from the trees, hitting Kakashi. But he quickly used the Kawarimi technique to swap places with a log. Naruko saw this as her chance and immediately prepared for a tactical retreat. Ra! Ura! Sakura! Sakura slowly opened her eyes, disoriented, hearing her name being called as someone gently slapped her cheek. She tried to focus, blinking several times to clear the blur from her vision. Memories flooded her mind. She recalled seeing Sasuke severely injured, with kunai lodged all over his body and blood spilling from his wounds. The sight of his mangled body and missing arm sent a chill down her spine. A feeling of dizziness washed over her, but before she could lose consciousness again, she felt someone shake her by the shoulders. Come on, Sakura. Stay with me. The voice urged, firm but gentle. Sakura focused on the blurry figure shaking her. Sasuke-kun? She thought, her emotional state clouding her perception. She instinctively buried her face into the figure's chest. Had she looked closely, she would have noticed that this person had blonde hair and blue eyes, not the dark hair and eyes of Sasuke. Naruko was taken aback. Here he was, being hugged by Sakura, a girl who had often voiced her dislike for him. It was strange, but oddly pleasant, compared to the usual animosity she displayed. Naruko gently rubbed her back, trying to calm her down. Sakura finally pulled away and looked up at Naruko, her eyes wide with realization. Naruko, what do you think you're doing? Naruko stood up and brushed herself off. Waking you up, that's what. Sakura didn't acknowledge the help, instead asking about Sasuke. Sasuke-kun, where is he? Naruko answered calmly, trying to ease Sakura's worries. He's fine. He was trapped by one of Kakashi's jutsu back in the clearing. Sakura breathed a sigh of relief, but when she tried to stand, her legs wobbled. She made to go help Sasuke, but Naruko stopped her. Wait, Sakura. I need to talk to you. Sakura crossed her arms and scowled. What do you want, Baka? I'm busy. Naruko frowned, frustration creeping into her voice. Our time to get the bells is running out, so just hear me out. That's why I don't have time for you. I need to help Sasuke-kun so we can both get a bell, and you don't. Sakura turned her back on Naruko and started walking away. For once, Naruko had had enough of her behavior. She ran up to Sakura, grabbed her shoulder, and turned her around. Sakura, what's the matter with you? I understand that you don't like me, I really do. But I've never done anything to you to make you hate me this much. Sakura surprised Naruko by turning and attempting to slap her across the face. Naruko dodged, but lost her balance and fell to the ground. Now on the ground, Naruko looked up to see Sakura glaring at her, the hate in her eyes unmistakable. Never done anything to me? Never done anything to me? Sakura's voice grew louder, her words full of bitterness. How can you be so clueless? You thief. That broke Naruko out of her stunned silence. She stood up, walking closer to Sakura. I'm not a thief, Sakura Tbyo. She retorted, her voice firm. Yes, you are. Sakura shot back, relentless in her accusation. All right, Sakura. Enlighten me. What have I ever taken from you that made you call me a thief? What could you possibly have that I don't that would make me do something as low as stealing? Tears welled up in the girl's eyes. Sakura was becoming emotional from the intensity of their argument, but she refused to let Naruko see her cry. You stole my best friend." That statement completely stunned Naruko. Best friend? What is she talking about? "Sakura, you're not making any sense," Naruko protested. The girl with the pink hair laughed bitterly. "Sure, act like you don't know what I'm talking about." As Sakura continued her rant, Naruko's thoughts were elsewhere. Her best friend. Could she be referring to Ino? Then, suddenly, a memory flashed in Naruko's mind. Wait. Don't tell me this has something to do with what happened almost 4 years ago. So now you remember? Obviously, I'm talking about that day in the park. The day that you took my best friend away from me, Sakura shouted, her voice filled with emotion as she recalled the most painful event in her childhood. Flashback. 8-year-old Sakura Haruno waited patiently beside a slide for her best friend to arrive at the park they often visited. Sakura had been asked by her friend to meet her at sunset because she wanted to introduce her to someone very special to her. Sakura was excited at the thought of meeting a new friend, especially someone so important to her blonde friend. As Sakura waited, butterflies fluttered in her stomach when she saw Ino Yamanaka, as cheerful as ever, dragging someone behind her by the hand under the orange-tinted sky. Sakura had always been shy around people she didn't know. The source of her insecurity stemmed from the teasing she received about her slightly larger than average forehead. It wasn't until she met Ino that she started to break free from her shell. The nervous girl fidgeted with the red ribbon in her hair, which was a gift from Ino and a symbol of their friendship. The ribbon had helped her overcome the bullying she'd faced, and instead of hiding behind her bangs, she proudly displayed her forehead. "Hey, Sakura-chan." Ino greeted with a bright smile. Sakura returned the smile and greeted her. "Hi, Ino-chan." Then she noticed the boy holding Ino's hand, trying to hide behind her. He must be Ino-chan's friend. Sakura was a little surprised to find that Ino wanted to introduce her to a boy, but when she saw how shy he was, she couldn't help but think of how similar he was to herself when she first met Ino's friend. Remembering what it felt like, Sakura decided to be the confident one this time. She walked over to the boy and introduced herself. "Hello, I'm Haruno Sakura, nice to meet you." She smiled as brightly as she could. Ino was surprised but happy to see Sakura acting so confidently. The boy, who had been hiding behind Ino, looked up with a smile of his own. "Nice to meet you too. I'm Uzumaki Naruko." Sakura's eyes widened in recognition. The unmistakable spiky blonde hair and whisker marks, she immediately recognized him as the loner of the playground. Without thinking, she stepped back, her demeanor changing from confident to nervous. "Ino-chan, what is she doing here?" Sakura asked, pointing at the suddenly downcast Naruko. Her voice trembled as she spoke, fear and uncertainty clear on her face. Ino's eyebrows furrowed in confusion. "What's wrong, Sakura-chan?" she asked. Instead of answering, Sakura acted. She marched up to Naruko and pushed her away from Ino. Naruko stumbled and fell to the ground. Then, Sakura grabbed Ino's hand and began walking away from her. "Are you okay, Ino-chan? Did she do anything to you?" Sakura asked, but Ino's eyes were still glued to Naruko, who was sitting on the ground, looking hurt. When Ino finally realized what Sakura had done, she pulled her hand from Sakura's grip and ran back to Naruko's side. "Naruko-chan, are you okay?" Ino asked, helping Naruko up. Naruko nodded, clearly trying to hold back her emotions. Ino turned and glared at Sakura. "What is wrong with you, Sakura?" she demanded. Sakura took a step back, hurt by her friend's words. She pulled her hands close to her chest, speaking in a smaller voice. "What are you doing with her? My mom says I should stay away from her. You should too, Ino-chan." "Why should I stay away from her just because your mom says so?" Ino shot back, clearly frustrated. But my mom says," Sakura stammered, but Ino cut her off. "It doesn't matter what your mom says, Sakura. You don't even know Naruko-chan and you're treating her badly. Apologize to her." Sakura felt hurt and betrayed. Ino had never scolded her before. She had never been mad at her like this. But now, Ino was angry, and it was all because of Naruko. The girl that everyone avoided. The one her mother warned her about. Maybe everyone else was right. Maybe Ino was wrong this time. After all, if she hung out with Naruko, wouldn't people start making fun of her again? Sakura took a deep breath and shook her head. She couldn't go through that again. She had to make Ino choose between her and Naruko. I. Sakura started, her voice shaky, but she gathered her courage. "No, Ino-chan, I won't." She held out her hand toward her friend, as if offering her a chance. Come on, Ino-chan. Leave her behind and let's go play. Sakura truly believed Ino would take her hand and everything would go back to normal. That's why it hurt so much when Ino stood there silently, looking at her with a look of disappointment in her eyes. Ino-chan, Naruko said softly, hoping to reassure her friend that it was okay, but Ino firmly squeezed her hand, signaling that she was not going anywhere. Sakura's heart broke. She had been replaced, by her best friend, no less. Replaced by a girl that everyone but Ino disliked. Sakura wiped away her tears, hiccuping as she did. She took off the red ribbon that symbolized her friendship with Ino and let it fall to the ground. With that, the crying girl left the park, the place where she had met her best friend, and now the place where they parted ways. Both Ino and Sakura would later learn that true bonds like the one they shared didn't come around often. End of flashback. Sakura Haruno had always surrounded herself with friends, but none of them could replace Ino. She had grown up without someone she could confide in, without someone she could share her deepest secrets with. And she blamed Naruko for that. Do you know how much it hurt when she chose you over me? Do you? Sakura cried out, her eyes welling up with tears. If you hadn't come along, Ino and I would still be friends. I lost a good friend because of you. Naruko stood there, her face partially covered by the bangs of her hair, silently taking Sakura's angry words. You selfish idiot. She muttered under her breath. What did you say? Sakura snapped, her anger flaring. Of all people, Naruko was calling her an idiot? Sakura was ready to lash out, but then she saw how Naruko's arms were shaking, and she could hear her fists clenching. I said. Naruko began, her voice filled with quiet intensity. You are a selfish idiot. Sakura took a step back, startled by the strength behind Naruko's words. The emotion in her voice left her speechless. You always think about yourself, Naruko continued. Do you realize how many people you hurt that day? The blonde girl's expression softened. That day, Ino told me she wanted me to meet someone really special to her, someone she always talked about. I was nervous, but Ino wouldn't take no for an answer. So, she dragged me to the park. Naruko's voice grew quiet as she looked at Sakura, who was listening intently. You remember, right? When Ino and I got to the park, you were already there. You exchanged greetings with Ino, and then you noticed me. Naruko let out a soft, nervous laugh. You smiled at me, and for the first time that day, I felt at ease. But her voice grew serious again. But when you saw my face, and heard my name, your smile faded, just like so many others. Back then, I didn't have many friends. That's why Ino wanted to introduce me to someone who wouldn't judge me or hurt me. Ino can be loud, she can be bossy, but she cares deeply for her friends. That's why she was so upset with you when she saw your reaction. That doesn't change the fact that she chose you over me. Sakura retorted, though her voice was softer now. Naruko shook her head. She didn't choose me over you. Your attitude pushed her away. Think about it. If I had treated you badly, Ino would have chosen you. That's just the kind of person Ino-chan is. She cares about her friends equally. Sakura wanted to argue, but the more she thought about it, the more she realized Naruko was right. Even though Ino tried to act happy for my sake that day, I could see how sad she was. That night, when I got up around midnight, I heard noises coming from Ino's room. I quietly stood outside her door and listened as she cried herself to sleep. I stayed there for a while before she finally drifted off. Naruko's gaze became more intense. I'm not going to lie to you, Sakura. That night, I didn't just dislike you for making one of my precious people cry. I hated you. She stepped closer to Sakura, lowering her voice to a near whisper. Do you understand now how many people you hurt? You hurt Ino. You hurt me, because Ino is my friend. And you hurt yourself too. Sakura finally understood. She had forced Ino to choose between her two friends, just because she feared rejection for being seen with Naruko. Now, she had what she thought she wanted, a group of friends. But none of them felt like true friends. Naruko sighed when she saw the tears in Sakura's eyes. But you know. It's not too late. It might hurt, but there are things Ino hasn't shared with me. Things she'd only tell you, Sakura. Sakura looked up, her eyes shining with hope. You really think I can fix things with Ino? For the first time in 4 years, Naruko smiled warmly at her. Of course. It's Ino-chan we're talking about. Databayo. Sakura returned the smile, her heart a little lighter. So, you said you wanted to talk to me about something? Naruko nodded, feeling relieved that Sakura was listening. Yes. I think I've figured out how we can pass Kakashi-sensei's test. A way to pass the test? Sakura raised an eyebrow. How? Naruko's eyes brightened. I remembered something I learned about Kakashi-sensei. He's tested many teams before, but none of them passed. Sakura seemed slightly frustrated. So what? That just shows how tough Kakashi-sensei's test is. I thought that too, Naruko replied. But if you think about it, no Jinan, no matter how skilled, could get the bells on their own if Kakashi-sensei is serious. Sakura frowned, starting to understand. Are you saying we should work together to get the bells? Naruko nodded. Exactly. You caught on fast. But there are only 2 bells, and we're 3 on the team. One of us won't get a bell. Naruko smiled slightly. That's the key, Sakura. If Kakashi-sensei has given the same test to other teams, what do you think their reaction was when they saw there were only 2 bells for 3 people? Sakura thought for a moment. I bet they all tried to get the bells on their own. I doubt anyone wanted to fail and go back to the academy. Exactly. Kakashi-sensei wants us to compete against each other. But that's not what a team is supposed to be about. Before Sakura could say anything, Naruko continued. Yesterday, someone gave me some advice. Look underneath the underneath. I thought about it, and I think I get it now. Kakashi-sensei wants to see if we can work together, not fight against each other. Wait. You think Kakashi-sensei will pass us if we show him we can work together? Sakura asked, still skeptical. Maybe, Naruko replied with a shrug. I can't be sure. But I think teamwork is our best chance to get the bells. Sakura seemed hesitant. What if you're wrong? What if we work together and still don't get the bells? One of us could still be left behind. Naruko understood her concerns. They had all worked so hard to become shinobi, and no one wanted to risk failing. But her gut told her that teamwork was the way forward. If I'm wrong, then I'll give the bells to you and Sasuke if we get them, Naruko said, speaking with quiet confidence. Sakura still seemed uncertain. How can I trust you? What if you take the bells for yourself and leave me behind? The only thing I can do is give you my word, Sakura, Naruko replied earnestly. Sakura was quiet for a moment, torn between doubt and hope. She and Naruko hadn't been on the best of terms, but something in Naruko's voice made her want to believe. So, what's the plan? Do you even have a plan? Sakura finally asked. Naruko smiled. I do. But first, we need to find Sasuke and get him on board. Sakura's eyes widened. Oh. I can't believe I forgot about Sasuke-kun. Without another word, she turned and began heading toward the clearing. Naruko, what are you waiting for? We need to help Sasuke-kun. Naruko hurried after her, smiling to herself. Some things never change. Damn her. For the 20th time in a row, Sasuke cursed Kakashi. The sensei had caught her distracted, and now she was paying the price for her mistake. The blazing rays of the sun beat down on the only part of her body exposed to the sky, her head. Besides the horrible heat, there was also the nuisance of curious ants that would approach her vulnerable face, some even biting her, causing an itch she couldn't scratch. Damn her. She cursed again, raising the count to 21. The first thing she would do after getting out of the hole was get back at Kakashi for this humiliation. At least Naruko and Sakura aren't here to see me like this. Sasuke thought, finding solace in her solitude. Hey, Sasuke. Looks like you were a little in over your head, huh? The buried girl frowned when she recognized the voice mocking her as Naruko's. And sure enough, Naruko and Sakura soon appeared in her line of vision. Naruko, stop making fun of Sasuke-chan, Sakura scolded, sending a glare toward her blonde teammate. Geez, Sakura, relax, it was just a joke. Dadabayo. Naruko and Sakura came closer to Sasuke until they were just a couple of feet away from her, head. Immediately, Sakura began digging her out while Naruko spoke to her. Sasuke, we need to talk. Stay there and listen, Naruko said, snickering at the end, but simultaneous glares from Sasuke and Sakura silenced her. Naruko then explained how she believed teamwork was the key to passing the test, or at least getting the bells. Essentially, she told Sasuke the same thing she had told Sakura about how she came to that conclusion. At first, Sasuke, who believed that working together with Naruko and Sakura would only slow her down, refused to team up with them. She was genuinely surprised when Sakura began supporting Naruko, and slowly, the idea of working together with them became more bearable. The pressure of knowing how little time was left also helped Sasuke consider Naruko's proposal. It wasn't until Naruko said that she would give them both the bells if they earned them that Sasuke made her decision. The time is running out. I guess there's no other way. Finally, Sasuke gave in. Great, now I'll tell you what I'm planning, but first. Naruko rummaged through the lowest pockets of her shorts and pulled out a pair of ration bars. She passed them to Sakura and said, "Eat. You'll need your energy for what's to come. I'll take care of getting Sasuke out." She then shrugged. "We don't have time to waste. I don't know how much longer the original Naruko can distract Hatake-san, so you'll have to feed Sasuke while I get her out and explain the plan." Sakura squealed at the thought of feeding her precious Sasuke-chan, while the buried girl paled. "Wait. What do you mean by the original Naruko?" Sasuke asked. Naruko's face took on an expression of realization. "Oh, didn't I tell you? I guess I forgot. Look, I'm a clone created to find you and Sakura while the original distracts Hatake-san. It would be bad if he overheard what we're planning, wouldn't it?" Sasuke and Sakura nodded, still unsure about the shadow clone technique, but that would have to wait. Without further delay, Sakura excitedly kneeled near Sasuke's head, removed the wrapping from the ration bar, and presented it to her mouth. "Come on, Sasuke-chan, say ah." Sasuke turned to Naruko, and for a moment, it seemed like the Uchiha was silently pleading for her to do something. "I'm sorry, Sasuke. But it's me or her, and I'm not going to feed you," Naruko thought. Somehow, Sasuke understood and relented to her fate. She opened her mouth and bit into the ration bar, causing another loud squeal from the pink-haired girl. "Is it good, Sasuke-chan?" the excited girl asked. The blushing Uchiha only made a faint sound and continued eating. "Time is almost up," Kakashi Hatake thought as he entered the clearing. After dealing with Sakura using a genjutsu and Sasuke with a ninjutsu, he decided to find the blonde who had escaped him earlier. He found Naruko deep in the forest, and they began their battle. Truthfully, Kakashi was only playing with Naruko. It seemed she was out of ideas since all she did was spam clones and send them at him. He played with the girl for a while, but when he decided it was time to end it, Naruko created another wave of clones, this time dispersing them through the forest while she escaped. It was needless to say that Kakashi went on a wild goose chase for a while. In the end, he didn't find Naruko, but it wasn't because he lacked skill. No. Kakashi simply grew bored. That's why he was currently sitting on his haunches, looking directly at the still buried Uchiha. "How are you holding up, Sasuke-chan?" he asked. "Damn you," the Uchiha growled. "Yer, you still need to work on your attitude. I guess one more hour in the hole would be good for you." "Hey, Kakashi." Kakashi stood up when he heard his name being called. "Good, you've joined us. I was about to go look for you. Time's almost up, you know." Naruko was accompanied by 5 clones, each with a determined look on their face. "Never. I will pass this test and become Hokage, Databayo." The Jonin raised an eyebrow. "Are you okay? You're acting a little off." "The only thing off here is your haircut," Naruko jabbed, and Kakashi's eye twitched at the remark. "Now, go." Naruko, the original, pointed at Kakashi, and instantly the 5 clones rushed toward him. The clones didn't stand a chance against Kakashi, but as soon as he dispelled 5 copies, another wave of 4 Narukos approached him from his right. The first clone was quickly dispelled by a punch to the ribs. The second clone, which followed behind the first, tried to land a punch on Kakashi's face. Kakashi countered with a punch of his own. Kakashi's longer arms made his punch connect first, sending the clone stumbling. However, the clone didn't disappear. Instead, it breached Kakashi's guard and reached for the bells. Kakashi's eyes widened as he grabbed the intruding hand, twisted it, and pushed the blonde clone to the ground. "Is this the original?" While Kakashi was immobilizing one clone, another one sneaked behind him and jumped onto his back. Kakashi stopped the clone's arms from wrapping around his neck, then performed a flawless hip throw, dispelling the clone with a puff of smoke. The remaining 2 clones attacked with a flurry of punches and kicks, forcing Kakashi to take a few steps back. He barely had time to breathe before a large fireball soared toward him. "What? Does Naruko know the Gokakyu no Jutsu too?" Kakashi jumped back, narrowly evading the fireball, but he wasn't unscathed. His shirt sleeves were burned as he used his arms to block the heat. The clones that had been attacking him were destroyed by the passing fireball. The Jonin glared at the Naruko he assumed had launched the jutsu. Coincidentally, it was the same Naruko who had made a jab about his hair. She lowered her hand from the ring made with her fingers that was often used for that particular jutsu and smirked. Kakashi was about to ask her what was so funny when he was attacked by the remaining Naruko. The one he had forced to the ground. Kakashi winced as he blocked a kick with his singed left arm. The clone then latched onto his arm. Kakashi tried to shake her off, but the clone held on with a grip of steel. Slightly worried, Kakashi was about to resort to more aggressive tactics when the remaining Naruko, the one who threw the fireball, attempted a jumping reverse roundhouse kick. Kakashi grabbed the leg of his assailant with his free hand, but the clone twisted in mid-air, grabbing Kakashi's vest by the neck while smirking, a look very similar to that of a certain Uchiha. In the midst of blocking the clone's attacks, Kakashi didn't realize he was being led toward the still-buried Sasuke. When the two Narukos saw Kakashi was a step away from Sasuke's head, they yelled, "Now, Sakura!" The ground beneath Kakashi rumbled lightly, followed by a mighty war cry. "Shanaro!" Sasuke shot out of the hole, dust and small pebbles flying around her as she stretched her arms toward Kakashi's waist, reaching for the bells in victory. "I'm proud of you." Kakashi smiled warmly as his students celebrated their success, with the bells now in Sasuke and Sakura's hands. He couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. The Genin had displayed excellent teamwork. The Naruto who launched the fireball was actually Sasuke in disguise with a henge, and the Sasuke trapped in the hole was actually Sakura. They explained how they had managed to free Sasuke earlier, then had Sakura switch places, ensuring she could escape easily. Naruko and Sasuke had worked seamlessly together to drive Kakashi toward Sakura, who was ready to grab the bells. Overall, Kakashi was impressed with their strategy. It seemed that Naruko had come up with the core idea, while Sasuke and Sakura had refined the plan with their input. "Well, I don't have much more to say except Sasuke, Sakura, you pass," Kakashi announced proudly. Sakura squealed with joy, and Sasuke gave a small, satisfied smile. However, a moment of confusion lingered. "Sensei, why didn't you mention Naruko?" Sakura asked, looking concerned. "Because she didn't get a bell, which means she failed," Kakashi responded. Naruko was taken aback. But wasn't this test supposed to show whether we could work together? You know, look underneath the underneath?" Kakashi gave a knowing smile. "Ah, so that's where you got that idea from." Still trying to convince Kakashi, Naruko was cut off by Sasuke. "Naruko, catch!" Instinctively, Naruko caught the small object Sasuke threw her way. When she opened her hand, she was surprised to see that it was half of a bell. Sakura, Naruko, and Kakashi all turned toward Sasuke, who was calmly putting a kunai back into his holster. "She now has a bell, so I don't see how she failed," Sasuke remarked. Kakashi's thoughts lingered on Sasuke's words. He's really grown up. Kakashi then addressed the group. "Those who break the rules and codes of the ninja world are considered trash." The Genin braced themselves, wondering if they were going to be scolded. But you know what? Those who don't take care of their comrades are even worse than trash. He then gave them a thumbs up. "Congratulations, Team 7, you pass." That's all for today, but there's plenty more to come. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated on all the latest content. Your support, love, and respect mean the world to me. Catch you in the next one. 6 Path Weeb.